So, guys, quick video, hopefully, and all right. So, this comment kind of reminds me of what exactly is wrong with these discussions when women are trying to explain why men are lonely. So, by the way, this comment was from under a post where there was a shockingly original take from a leftist feminist side about why men are lonely. Oh, men are for the first time in human history being forced to make social fabric. Back then, men built social structures which forced women to get into social connections with them. Social connections were forced back then. I mean, guys, all of that requires a whole discussion of its own about why that cannot be called forced. And truth is, even in this part of town where all people are about, oh, bro, genetic determinism, bro, anatomy is destiny, bro, anatomy is destiny, bro. Anatomy is destiny, not when it's just not simply not when it comes to looks. It extends to pretty much everything. Somehow people try to deny that the anatomical differences between men and women extend far past their physical stature. It extends into the variability of IQ. It extends into the variability of their preferences. It extends into the variability of their behavior and aptitude and ambitions, which might have led to the formation of society as it was. And this whole patriarchy boogeyman is just made up to, you know, and yeah, they have that convenient boogeyman of internalized misogyny. So whenever you point out some trait in women that might have led to the formation of the quote-unquote patriarchy, i.e., their on average, lower number of outliers and geniuses, you know, then it's immediately written off as internalized misogyny. But it's a different discussion altogether. I once said to my ex, "It feels like you want a step-forward wife." After I explained to him what that was, he replied, "Well, yeah, who wouldn't want that?" In complete seriousness. No irony at all. Guys, this comment perfectly explains what's the problem. Women are always talking about men they have already been with. Women are not talking about the lonely guy, autistic guy, sub 5 guy, short, balding man, like manlet dude, framelet. They're not talking about that guy they've given a chance. They're essentially always talking about men, complete deadbeats that they have given a chance, and they have these revenge fantasies on their exes. So whenever they see lonely men, they project the characteristics of their exes onto these lonely men. Oh, yeah, there's a lonely guy who's struggling in life. Yeah, he's lonely because he has no emotional intelligence. He's lonely because he's an entitled fuck. He is misogynist. Because women are projecting the characteristics of the guys they have most likely been with. This is the whole reason that women are so interested and attracted to versions of history that always talk about oppression, that always talk about force. There are overwhelmingly parts of historical forums which vilify certain races of people for being racist. Oh, only white people can be racist. The word slave literally originates from the word Slav, who were ethnically Eastern white people taken captive by Turkic Muslim rulers, right? So this is the kind of narrative that always appeals to them. So they are drawn more than men to non-fiction stories of rape, murder, and serial killers, right? So a version of history which always talks about how women were oppressed, how they were not allowed into institutions, appeals to them. To actual sociologists who understand how jobs were back then, to people who understand that these jobs, most of the jobs that women fill the ranks of today, did not exist more than 200 years ago. Even 200 years is a major stretch. Even a lot of jobs that women do fill the ranks today, maybe some of the jobs that women fill the ranks of did exist. But here's the thing: we did not have air conditioning. We did not have elevators. We did not have clean rooms. So these jobs were a lot more effort consuming than they are today. So it's obvious that women did not favor to work in those jobs. There's an oversimplification of past human beings, like women were forcefully oppressed. Bro, like, it makes no sense. Make it make sense. The feminist movement started in the era of the World War, right? When humanity already had the most vile possible weapons to inflict serious damage on other people, on each other. So why would women not ask for their own rights and jobs when these weapons did not exist? When it was much easier to quell rebellions. These days, you don't really see military coups happening a lot like they used to back in the day, right? Because the governments have these weapons. This simplification of past humans is a common trend in the revisionism of history. There's multiple examples I can talk about, such as there's a good article piece that I can refer to you guys, the mythical massacre at Mohenjo-daro. People are always drawn to those flashy possibilities of warfare, murder. Truth is, human beings were not as retarded back then, as much as we like to give them flack for. People forget that warfare wasn't always drone-based warfare like it's today. People actually had to go to those wars physically and get fucking killed. So people were much more calculated in what kind of retarded move they pulled off. It's not like a fucking video game where you sit in a room and drone someone who has had to leave his home for some retarded conscription. So people were much more calculated in what kind of oppression and what kind of warfare they were involved in. So what it was women were not involved in these jobs because they were simply too hard for them, and the main thing that women had to give to men was sex, and that is the marketplace advantage that women were looking for. So they restricted the access of sex, and this is from the sexual economics theory from Roy Baumeister and Kathleen Vons. And the marketplaces, the whole restriction that women faced was mostly self-imposed. It was mostly self-imposed. Women were not forced into these places by men. They were forced into these conditions by their own anatomy, which prevented them from doing certain jobs. And of course, their own lazy nature, because they wouldn't take part in those jobs. Because they were looking for a huge trade, getting the resources accumulated for them in exchange for having kids. About breaking the social fabric. Her claim was men do not have social fabric, so that is the reason that men are lonely these days. This is a good example of men who actually, and yeah, she said that men could be lazy back in the day. Men could be lazy back in the day and still get a wife. This is an example of how men could be quote-unquote lazy back in the day to get a wife. This is what men back in the day had to do in order to get some sort of fermented bread and shit like that. Each of these, and these are not even the largest structures in the ancient world. The largest structure in the ancient world is already in ruins, right? These are the largest surviving structures. The biggest structure was the Kanishka Stupa. So, and this one is, these are the surviving ones. Each of these weighs like 10 times, 15 times the weight of the biggest structures that we have today. They didn't have those fancy cranes. They didn't have those devices to push those stone bricks. They had to carve these. They had to make ramps. They had to push them up by hand. They had to exert themselves. So these were supposed examples of men getting wives easily, and how they could be lazy. Like, dude, they had to do this for a fermented bread. What are you talking about? That men had it easy back in the day? About people who break social fabrics. 39% of hospitalized male psychopaths had consensual sex with female mental health staff. More than half of staff sexual misconduct, prison staff sexual misconduct, involves female guards and staff. Childhood bullies experience greater sexual success than non-bullies. Imprisoned serial killers, terrorists, and rapists receive thousands of love letters from women. Antisocial, criminal, and violent men have greater sexual access to women. Criminal and antisocial men have more sexual partners and have sex earlier in life. So, who is the one who's rewarding people for breaking social fabric? Are women really not rewarding men for breaking social fabric? Are women really not rewarding men? And yeah, I didn't even mention the Spanish study which talked about how misogynist men have more partners. Are women really not rewarding men for these tendencies if they are on a certain level of attractiveness, or is it that women have had shitty experiences with attractive men that they give chances without caring for their personalities, and then when these personalities come to bite them in the ass, they believe that they would be horrible with everyone else but good to them, and when these come back to bite them in the ass, they're suddenly like, oh, this is the reason that men are lonely. The irony is, women are already with those men. Those men are never alone, and men who are lonely are better than those guys. But again, like Rehab Room said, you have to stop thinking like a man. According to a woman, a 6'4" guy, hot guy, who is all of this is superior to you. And I will see you guys in the next one. And up until then, know your place in life and act accordingly.